Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to BWTM Sports. If you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button. We really do like having subscriptions. Okay, we're going to talk about Lee Selby and Josh Warrington. Not something that I often do. Why did he fail to beat Josh Warrington? It's not one of those videos that I do often, but certainly a video. I think videos I'm going to start doing a little bit more often, because often in comment sections we hear this person's going to smash that person, this person's going to beat that person, this person's not good enough to beat this person. It's a known contest, but we never ever hear often in comment sections why a fighter isn't good enough to beat another fighter. But we always hear he'll just get smashed, no breakdown. And this sport is a scientific sport. The art of boxing is hit and not get hit. That's the science of boxing. Making a guy miss, making him pay. Drawing a guy onto a punch, making a guy think you're going one way and then moving the other way. Taking away a guy's best punch, which maybe is a right hand, so you move away from the right hand. Or if you don't move away from the right hand, you make him cautious about throwing that right hand, which could be a counter left hook. Every time he throws right hand, you throw in a counter left hook. It could be doubling up with the jab, not allowing that gentleman or lady to land their shots. Maybe that person needs to set their feet before they throw big punches. That way, then you move. That means constantly when you're moving around the ring, you're not allowed a person to set their feet. And if they can't set their feet, they can't land them big punches. And if they can't land the big punches, then basically they're not the fighter that they were first advertised. But once you stop moving, then that person is able to land their big shots. And then, hey presto, you could find yourself looking up at the lights. It's the science of the sport, which is very interesting. It always intrigues me. But okay, this is not a bashing session. This is not a hating session. This is not a discrediting session. In fact, I'm trying to be as constructive as possible. First of all, Lee Selby came into the fight against Josh Warrington as the favorite. Okay, let's get that straight. And also, he had made 5 defenses of the IBF title. Lee Selby wasn't really expected to do much. He wasn't expected to become world champion, but in a lot of quarters, Lee Selby did that. Some people thought he was too flashy. He was a bit too full of himself. And people don't seem to like that in British boxing. Yet, they still like to turn up for press conferences and see trash talking. And people that don't talk don't seem to sell tickets. So, I don't know. People in boxing are very fickle. Lee Selby, first of all, give him all the credit in the world. He was the IBF world champion, made 5 defenses of the title. And he beat some good fighters along the way. You could say they were past their best. You can say what you want, but he defended the title 5 times. Some people have never won a world title. There are some very well-known names in boxing that have never won a world title. And there's some guys who've won a world title, never made one defense of the world title, because the next fight they've gone completely obliterated. I think he faces number 1 contender. So I think he faces mandatory as well, Lee Selby. So fair play to Lee Selby, and a credit to Welsh boxing as well. A man that's turned his life around. I remember listening to one particular interview. It was on TalkSport, good old TalkSport, and Lee Selby was being interviewed, and the interviewer was trying to dig up Lee Selby's past. He's like, well, no, that's what I was back then. I'm not on the show to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what I'm doing today as a world champion. So even Lee Selby as world champion, people want to dig up his past and how much of a bad boy he was and all this stuff, which is, you can use it as a selling point, but he wasn't using it as a selling point as an interview. He was just talking about himself being a world champion, and that's what the interview was about. So fair play to Lee Selby for that. Not so great interviewing by TalkSport. So, okay, the video is, why did he fail to beat Josh Warrington? Now, your typical YouTube commenter will say, yeah, because Josh Warrington's a better fighter. Okay, but what makes him a better fighter? If he was such a better fighter, why was he almost the overwhelming favorite to beat Josh Warrington? There's a few things. Now, when I look at a fighter, I look at their strengths and their weaknesses. And I always talked about Lee Selby. He had decent footwork, he decent power, and was able to make a guy miss and make them pay. But for me, the cracks started showing in his style as he started moving up in levels. Now, for me, Lee Selby's biggest problem, biggest flaw was pulling straight back from punches, with the chin in the air. And when you pull straight back from punches, literally, when you launch an attack on somebody and then you're trying to get away and you move in a straight line, move backwards. You're not moving left or right. You're moving straight back. You've got your chin in the air, and then you've got a left hook. You're vulnerable to a left hook or right hand over the top. In my pre-fight uh, analysis of this fight with Josh Warrington, I said if I'm training Josh Warrington, I'm going to tell him when Selby pulls back from punches, keep throwing left hooks and right hands, left hooks and right hands. You're going to catch him because when you're pulling straight back from punches, there's no defense there. There's no way you get out of the way of punches because you're just pulling back. You're using lots of reflexes to pull yourself back out of the way. And then when you're pulling back, you're vulnerable for somebody to get at you. When you're trying to slip to the sides, you then get yourself in a position to then throw shots afterwards. Unfortunately for Lee Selby, he came against a guy who himself was a big featherweight. Selby has fought guys in the past, and he's been a big featherweight. This time he fought Josh Warrington, and Josh Warrington was a big featherweight himself. So it wasn't a case of Selby being the bigger man in there on the night. He probably weighed as much as Selby, or even more than Selby on the night. Josh Warrington's style is typical come forward and attack. Now, one of the things with an unbeaten fighter, and people don't talk about this, but unbeaten fighters, you don't know how good an unbeaten fighter is until they've been beat, until they've put it all on the line. Then you know how good a fighter is. We never knew how good Joseph Parker was until he got beat, because that's when they're giving their very all. And you find the guy's a better fighter than advertised sometimes, because when a fighter's record has been threatened, then we look and we say to ourselves, okay, he's going to give his very best. And sometimes fighters rise to the challenge, and their greatest challenge, they put on the greatest performance. For Josh Warrington, as an unbeaten fighter, he realized there was a possibility he could well lose in front of his crowd, but he also knew there was a good possibility he could beat Lee Selby if he did some basic things. So what he was doing, instead of charging into Lee Selby, which is what Lee Selby was expecting, he was off the back foot, which threw Lee Selby. There's an old saying, and I remember Jim Watt saying it was against Riddick Bowe and Evander Holyfield, the second fight, ITV commentary. And it was around the third or fourth round when Holyfield was starting to get on top of Riddick Bowe. And Jim Watt famously said, you can't prepare for a battle when you're in a war. You can't prepare for battle when you're in a war. It basically means that if you come into a fight thinking you've won the fight and it's just a matter of getting in there, throwing some punches, making a guy miss, making him pay and embarrassing him, and that's how the fight's going to go, and that's the way the script's going to go, then if there's an adjustment where the fighter that you thought you were going to make miss and pay and you were going to make him look like a fool is actually getting on top of you and is actually giving it to you, and you didn't prepare for that mentally, it's very hard to switch on to a war. You can fight back, but you're not prepared for that war. And Josh Warrington and his trainer need to be given all the credit in the world for bringing up a fantastic game plan for being able to draw Selby in, and then when Selby was leaving himself exposed, attack him, and then throw good body shots and throw good headshots. The strategy wasn't to try and knock Selby out, but if the knockout came, great. The aim was to work him, break him down, attack him, land 4 or 5 shots at a time, not just one shot. You see, the guy that knocked him down, I think it was Eric Hunter. And I said, even from the Eric Hunter fight, before the Eric Hunter fight, Eric Hunter's dangerous. He can punch, but he didn't throw enough punches, didn't have much of enough work rate, but he had enough power to hurt Lee Selby. So he dropped Lee Selby with the left hook, but Hunter didn't work enough. Here you have Warrington, a fresh fighter who may not have punched as hard as Hunter, but his work rate and his fitness, so he was able to work at that work rate. And of course, Selby wasn't able to bring the fight the way he would normally bring a fight because of Warrington's change of game plan. Another thing I felt that could have been a problem with Selby was he kept saying, even in all his interviews, he kept saying, I don't really train for the opponent. I train myself and be the best that I can be. That's all well and good until the opponent turns up with a different game plan to what you expected. So Selby expecting to miss and pay, make a guy miss and pay, that's fine. But again, Warrington came with a change of tactics. And again, Selby did not have a plan B during this fight. The third thing, Selby is a big featherweight, and at 31 years old, you do have to ask yourself the question, well, Lee Selby, is he now finding it difficult to make featherweight? Yeah, he made it on the scales, but what's the story about him getting on the scales? Did he make it on the scales healthily? Did he have to, you know, not eat and fast and starve himself? A lot of boxing fans don't see the behind the scenes of a fighter making weight. Trust me, I have done, and I've seen what fighters do. You know, day before, day of the fight, you know, they're doing of the way in there. They're still doing running early in the morning to shift those few couple of pounds off, and that's, you know, seeing them doing an hour going into sauna, and I'm seeing them looking completely gaunt just to get on the scale to make that scale say, yeah, he made the weight, so he must be healthy. That's, you know, you can sometimes be so far from the truth. So if people understood, and these are people who don't really see they just see the highlights of the sky and the weigh-ins, or the weigh-ins from, you know, when you go behind the scenes of this sport and you see what's really going on, when the lights, camera, and action's not around, and you actually see how people are making weight. Some guys haven't got a clue how to make weight. Some guys can make weight, but it's always been a struggle. You know, some guys barely make the weight. I don't know how Lee Selby made the weight. To me, he looked like he had very little on his punches, and he looked a tired fighter in there. The other thing I've got to ask the question is, Lee Selby's been training in America a lot. He said he's been training from going from gym to gym, training from gym to gym in America. How much, when he was going around all those gyms in America, were those sparring sessions taken out of Lee Selby? You know, he's very proud about not being knocked out, having a good chin. Those wars can take it out of you. You can have wars in the gym that take out of a fighter more than he does in a fight itself. So when you go to America, you're always trying to prove yourself. So he said, oh, you know, when I first went to America, everyone wanted to have a fight with me, but now I've kind of proven myself. Yeah, but what did you do in the process of proving yourself? How many wars did you get into? I'd love to talk to Tony Borg and ask him about what was going on behind the scenes. Did he make the weight in time? How was it making the weight? What's the years of being in America, training in America? You know, these things I'd like to find out about Lee Selby. I can't say his performances were getting better because they weren't. So you have to give Josh Warrington, regardless of what was going on in Lee Selby's camp, you have to give Josh Warrington all the credit in the world for doing what he did. And he's a better fighter and a better boxer than a lot of people gave him credit for. You could call Josh Warrington now a box fighter. Why? Because he can stick to a tactic. He can work a tactic. He can work off the front foot. He can work off the back foot. We've seen that now. We've seen he's, you know, he takes a decent shot. You've seen he's got a tremendous engine in him, and he can put punches together. So he can box to a game plan. So we got first to give Josh Warrington all the credit in the world. The other reason why Selby didn't fail to beat Josh Warrington is because of his trainer. His trainer sat down, took the time to study Lee Selby, the things he does well, the things he doesn't do so well. And that is another reason why Lee Selby is no longer IBF champion. I heard something in a press conference as well, which was quite concerning. Lee Selby saying that Josh Warrington tried to buy the title off of Lee Selby, that his manager tried to buy the title. I would like to have heard more about what Lee Selby was trying to say at the press conference about trying to buy the title. That would have been very interesting. I'd love to hear what he's got to say. And I think I should take a trip to Wales, because that is a place that I'm very fond of, a place that I almost had a professional contract training with Steve Robinson's former trainer and Barry Jones's trainer. in Wales. His name was Ronnie Rush, and I was training with Ronnie for a while, and it was very interesting training in Wales. It was Ely. It was the Ely boxing gym in Ely. And if you're a Welshman or you've been to Wales and you've been to Ely boxing gym, Ronnie Rush is the man. He was a very strict trainer. My father thought he was a good trainer for me because of the fact that he was from Trinidad and my family are from Trinidad, so there was a connection there. Sometimes that works out well, sometimes that doesn't work out so well. His prize fighter was Steve Robinson, and Steve Robinson, of course, went on to make numerous successful defenses of the world title. Paul Hodgkinson, Colin McMillan, even Duke McKenzie, who is commentates now for ITV on the big fight. Steve Robinson had wins of him, but ultimately came across a unique talent, the greatest showman in British boxing, Prince Naseem Hamed. And even with that story and that fight, even that brings, you think about that, because Robinson had been called off holiday to fight Prince Naseem Hamed. He came off of holiday to defend the title against Naseem. Naseem was the more popular fighter. So that's the story behind Robinson versus Naseem Hamed. He wasn't really happy. He didn't really want to fight the Prince at the time. It was documented in the media. He didn't want to fight the Prince, period. But he didn't want to fight the Prince coming off of holiday. So you never quite know what goes on in this sport of boxing unless you've got your ear to the ground and you're actually going to the camps and watching the guys train. You don't know what's going on. You just see them on Sky. You get clips of them training. And those guys are doing the video footage and the filming. Listen, they got a clue what's going on. Because, often you're going to camp and you'll go to the trainer will say, you can film this, but you can't film this. This is for TV. That's not for TV. So when you're seeing these things on Sky, and often you're seeing these things filmed by alternative media, be aware it's not the full story. It's the story they want you to see. So unless you're in the gym as a boxer, a trainer, a manager, a promoter, or good friend of the trainer, the fighter, the promoter, or the manager, it's all speculation. So yeah, so we need to see what Josh Warrington does from here. I will definitely see more. Now I want to see more of Josh Warrington. I didn't particularly rate his performance against Kiko Martinez in the fight. I thought that Kiko Martinez actually beat him, but fair play to Josh Warrington. He has done something very good tonight, and I hope that he's just not a one-fight wonder. It seems that Frank Warren's got his back now. I think he might try and do the Ricky Hatton thing with Josh Warrington and sell him like he sold Ricky Hatton, win a world title, and he's got a recognized world title belt. Now he can go on and fill out arenas. He's a Leeds, so the only thing I don't like about Josh Warrington, and it has to be said, Leeds fans, I know that maybe Lee Selby kind of wound them up a bit, but I just don't like that sort of hooligan type element to the whole Warrington thing. Don't like that. Of course, they're looking after their man, and from their perspective, they don't want some guy coming from somewhere else coming in and shooting their mouth off and expecting to win. So of course, they're going to back their man. I understand that, but the whole thing afterwards, where they try to go to the car and when that sort of stuff is kind of distasteful. But the rest of it's cool. You understand? Boxing fans or fans want to support their fighter. That's understandable. But I give Lee Selby all the credit in the world for being a champion and doing what he did. But at the end of the day, you've got to give Josh Warrington credit, and that's what I've done. I've given Josh Warrington all the credit in the world, and fair play to Josh Warrington. This is it from BWTM Sports. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave your comments. We're out of here. Take care.